Account right now.
All right, start the Twitch.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, video folks.
I'm not echoing or anything, am I?
No, you sound good.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you sound good.
Yeah.
Video's good too.
Oh my
Sweet.
gosh.
Where is it? Analysts?
In general,
In general. Durr.
that BioCow just put the cutest fuzzy
It's a
face I've
general
ever seen,
list.
and apparently it's a bat.
Oh my gosh. It does look like a wolf or a fox. That's a bat.
Look at her
That-
face right now.
It's so fuzzy.
She is engaged right now.
I need a pet bat immediately.
Oh look!
We also carry rabies, so you want to be careful.
I'm
That's
just gonna have this
fine.
be my video for the whole
If
show.
we all get rabies, what's
It's-
the difference?
It's a dadgum bat, really.
Bat eating a watermelon though, that'll turn you right around.
Yeah.
No, I don't like that. That's gross.
There's a lot more though. It's
Oof.
cool.
Unbelievable.
You know, there was I was at the grocery store, a health food store, so not like your standard grocery store the other day,
All right.
and there was like a small watermelon. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a box of a bunch of tiny
And you
little
picked a
watermelons,
fight with it.
and it was yes, and I wanted to speak to the manager immediately. No, but
Why
but
is this abomination?
well, and it was right. It was sort of like last minute purchase, like kind of near the register, where I'm like, oh God, like they're not only watermelon, but they're like small and
They're
horrible.
tiny.
It was a
They're
certain
retail
kind of
grenades.
watermelon, like it's like a bonsai watermelon. That's not what they called it, but something like that.
Yeah, they're a little bit smaller than a cantaloupe.
Ooh.
You know, it's-
If anybody doesn't know, Sarah hates watermelon.
Oh,
yeah,
I don't know about you, Aunt, but the rest of us are fine with watermelon.
yeah, totally
We
fine.
know that Sarah
just
despises-
a horrid fruit.
No, I'm going to have to back Sarah up on this one because.
Oh, really? I didn't
Thank you,
realize.
Amos.
Yeah,
Okay.
watermelon, any melons, watermelon, cantaloupe,
I must have
mushmelon,
forgotten. I apologize.
yeah, honeydew.
Oh.
They all have a common melon flavor that I just find completely wretched.
Oh my goodness, man.
Melon
Can't look at you
Vile.
the same anymore either.
Not even.
No, see,
cantaloupe.
I love a cantaloupe. I love a good cantaloupe. Honeydew, take it or leave it.
Honeydew is
Watermelon,
usually just-
watermelon is offensively bad.
Honeydew is often just too bland because they didn't pick it at the right. It's not properly.
Yeah,
ripe.
yeah,
It's
just
good,
kind of
it's good,
watery and
but-
kind of
yeah.
ugh. Cantaloupe I like a lot.
No, they all have a
See.
common melon flavor, and I just can't. I can't hack that.
Watermelon. Oh. It's just thinking about what it tastes like is
Okay, but yeah, BioCal wants to know. You don't
Upsetting.
have to like watermelon to think a bat eating it is cute. So, Sarah, does the cute outweigh the disgust?
yeah, slightly, but I still don't like to see anything eating a watermelon because I think of myself eating one and I'm like, ugh, gross.
Roll
Brush your
her
teeth.
eyes.
Ugh.
By the way, Dave the psychologist in our Discord has diagnosed you both with melancholy.
Oh,
Oh,
and our infinite sadness.
yes.
You know, it's so funny. I was just talking about the Smashing Pumpkins with some friends of mine yesterday. A friend of mine out of the blue was like, you know what? Siamese Dream doesn't get the credit it deserves. And the rest of us were like, who said that? It's a masterpiece.
Great
Who-
album.
Yeah, like who doesn't like that album? And he was like, I don't know. I just want to talk about Smashing Pumpkins. Like, no one is disputing how great
I
they
respect
are,
that.
you know?
I respect that effort.
Yeah. And then I listened to them for a few hours and it made me happy.
Not smashing melons, smashing pumpkins.
Correct.
Squash.
Yes. Squash. Not a well,
Could you squat?
is a squash a type of melon or no?
No, I don't think
That
so.
would be no.
It's more like a type of cucumber.
It's a
isn't it?
gourd,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure is. All right. We are going to wrap up melon talk now and transition over. It's half past the hour. Time for some daily tech news. Is everyone ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right.
That would be yes.
All right.
Yep.
Good. Amos?
I are good.
Okay, good. All right. Here we go. In 3, 2. Marcel Brown has supported independent tech news directly for 5 years. Be like Marcel. Become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS. This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, May 17th, 2019 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Joining us today, we're very happy to have Ant Pruitt, contributor from Tech Republic, on the show. How's it going, Ant?
Unbelievable as always. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm only sorry that Len Peralta won't be here today. His son is graduating, but he did draw art for us in advance of the show that we'll share with you.
Really?
Yeah. A little bit later, we'll get to that. But let's start with a few tech things you should know.
We're going to start on a sad note because Grumpy Cat has passed away. Grumpy's family said that she suffered complications from a urinary tract infection and died on Tuesday at the age of 7. Grumpy's internet stardom spanned far and wide, including countless memes, merchandise, books, even a Lifetime movie.
Moment of silence for Grumpy Cat.
R.I.P. Grumpy.
Minecraft Earth is a free-to-play AR game for iOS and Android. The game has 6 distinct elements. Some people are kind of comparing it to Pokemon Go. Tappables let players collect resources as they walk around. Adventures are augmented reality mini games that you play out in public spaces. Build plates let you collect materials and then collaborate with other people on buildings. Exploration lets you interact inside those buildings. And sharing shows off your creations to the public. Minecraft Earth will launch in a closed beta this summer.
Digital Trends conducted some Samsung Galaxy S10 5G speed tests on Verizon in Chicago, and the results are impressive. In April, the Moto Z3 with the Moto Mod allowed download speeds of 450 megabits per second, according to the speed test app by Ookla, peaking at 624 megabits per second. Okay, sounds all right.
Mm-hmm.
The Galaxy S10 5G hit 1.3 gigabits per second. However, a Verizon 5G node in Chicago can only deliver 5G speeds for about a block and a half, so there is some infrastructure to be had.
Supercomputer maker Cray, which we recently mentioned is working on a supercomputer here in the United States, announced that HPE, that's Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Remember, Hewlett-Packard split into the consumer division with the printers and computers. That's HP Inc. HPE is their enterprise services. That's a separate company now. Anyway, HPE is going to buy Cray for about $1.3 billion. In a statement, HPE said the move will increase their market share with federal and academic customers, as well as offer supercomputing products to commercial clients. HPE said the deal will likely close in the first quarter of 2020, so about a year from now. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Amazon Pay in India. I think this is especially important for you folks in North America, maybe even Europe, to understand, because it's a trend that's not really catching on in your part of the world. Amazon added flight ticket purchases to its Amazon Pay service in India in partnership with a local travel service called ClearTrip. Amazon Pay is becoming what folks are now calling a super app. So in Amazon Pay, you'll be able to buy your plane tickets, but also you can buy movie tickets, order food delivery, buy your bus tickets, pay your utility bills, your power, your water, your cable, top off your phone, because a lot of people in India do the pay by the minute, pay by the megabyte sort of thing. Last month, Amazon added peer-to-peer money transfer into its Android app in India. So that makes it a little faster. You can avoid some fees. Super apps are a trend in India as well as Asia. If you think about WeChat in China, that's essentially the proto super app. India's top mobile wallet Paytm and ride-hailing app Ola both just added credit cards this week. So iPhone kind of behind in that situation. TechCrunch points out another example, a call screening app called Truecaller in India has added messaging and payments. So I think this is something to keep an eye on, both in India, Southeast Asia, obviously China, Japan and Korea as well. And I'm curious if it's happening in other parts of the world. Email us feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com, because it seems like particularly messaging apps, but also payment apps and a few other kinds of apps trying to become platforms to say, hey, you can do a bunch of stuff in here. You don't have to go out to other apps on your phone.
Well, and markets differ depending on the region. You mentioned WeChat, Tom, and I remember the last time that I was in Beijing, which was, I don't know, almost 5 years ago now. WeChat that's where you did everything. It wasn't just, it was ride hailing. It was, paying friends, chatting, photos. The whole thing happened inside WeChat. And, for a time it was kind of like, okay, well, I guess, that's just the way that the market's going, in mainland China. But if you think about Amazon Pay expanding in a very similar way in India, my question is, why don't we do this in the
Yeah.
US?
Ant, do you have any theories on why this isn't really taking off here in North America as much?
I think it's a trust issue myself. I think Amazon figures, let's go away from the homeland, if you will, and focus on trying to get some pilot testers, if you will, and just go from there. But the trust between Amazon, Facebook, and Google here in the US continues to decline, whether we like it or not.
That could be it, because Messenger has tried to build itself like this and has not succeeded, right?
Mm-mm.
Not one bit.
Yeah, and that could very well be that people are like, yeah, I don't want to make payments through Messenger because, like you say, I don't trust you with my payment information.
I also think, even if it's not a trust issue, for me, it's like I am so used to standalone services that do one thing,
Right.
and hopefully do it well, right?
Right.
So Facebook Messenger bundling in, payments into Messenger, I'm like, okay, I don't know. I just like already have this other way that I, will like pay friends or, ask for, my share of the dinner bill later on. So it's sort of this weird way of like doing things the hard way that we're just used to.
Yeah, and like you say, different regions different. They did a special on India on the Phileas Club recently with Patrick Beja, where they talked about the fact that in India, which has multiple languages and lots of people who are very upset at each other over politics, which would sound familiar in the United States, they have no problems with electronic voting. They have standardized machines. The election commission is generally trusted there, and electronic voting is not an issue. It's seen as a positive, partly because people don't mind getting a voting ID. And here in the United States, you bring a government issued IDs, all of a sudden it causes a lot of mistrust,
Right.
for various reasons.
Let's talk about cars, shall we? Spotify began public testing of its first hardware product, a voice-controlled smart assistant called Car Thing. I love the name. It plugs into the 12-volt outlet, like the cigarette lighter or something equivalent. It connects to the car and your phone over Bluetooth. A circular screen shows what's being played, and a series of buttons can be linked to playlists as well. Spotify says it'll use the device to learn more about how people listen to music and also podcasts. Spotify trademarked Voice Thing and Home Thing in addition to Car Thing, so sounds like there's stuff on the horizon. Spotify will contact selected premium users in the US in the next few weeks to offer the chance to try Car Thing for free.
It's Spotify's Internet of Things.
And what will it cost after you've tried Car Thing for free and become enamored of it?
Spotify says they're not getting into hardware, that they just want to use this to gather research. I'll be curious if this just kind of goes away and they're like, oh yeah, we'll try a voice thing, we'll try a home thing, and that'll be it. Or whether that's a way to soft pedal it in case they don't get the data they want. I bet if they get the right data though, they start selling these things.
I don't know. Why not just keep doing what you're doing and doing it well with music? Just leave it at that,
Well, I mean, Spotify has doubled down on podcasts, certainly, the last 12 months or so.
Oh, that's right.
In particular.
How many people
But
want another voice assistant though, right? I think usually people just want, like, I've committed to Amazon or Google or Siri or whatever. I want to keep using that. I don't want to have another one.
well, and this is Spotify saying for all the people who don't have smart cars, right? They don't, they can't just like connect Bluetooth with their phone. We're going to offer them a solution. That's why I think the price is very important, because if it was like $2, you'd be like, of course, I'll get it.
Yeah, right.
$15, you might be like, I don't know. I'm going to get a new car anyway pretty soon.
Well, Vlad Savov over at The Verge wrote a piece called 3 Big Reasons Why Americans Aren't Upgrading Their Phones. The market's maturing, but in the United States in particularly, phone upgrade cycle is lengthening. And one of his reasons is that customers are satisfied with what we have. We don't feel like we need to get a new phone. It's not feeling as slow as it used to after a year of use. Number 2 reason is that the new, more expensive flagship phones from Apple and Samsung and others just don't provide the compelling innovations to justify the price. It's not that they don't have innovations. We just look at it and go, do I need to spend $1,000 or more for that? Maybe not. And number 3 reason is the phones that are innovating at lower price points are generally from Chinese manufacturers like Huawei, that have almost no presence in the United States. OnePlus is one of the exceptions here. And I guess the Pixel 3a is an attempt by a domestic manufacturer to do that. But that last point also includes a lack of competition in the US from Oppo, Vivo, Huawei, Xiaomi, etc., which might push Apple and Samsung a little harder, maybe bring down their prices. Who knows? What do you guys think of this?
Why not move point number 2 to number 1?
You just want to reorder them? Yeah, that's fair.
These phones cost way too much, and everybody just can't afford them. So most people are going to, try to be somewhat smart with their devices and take care of them with cases and screen protectors and things like that. Because even if you have the insurance coverages and whatnot, you're still spending additional money every year, and it's just not worth, continuing to buy more and more expensive devices when it's doing marginally different stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. I got the new, 10X Max or 10S Max, and I hadn't gotten a new iPhone in 3 years before that, and my old one was quite beat up by that point, but it worked fine.
It was still serviceable,
yeah,
right?
and and I still get sort of like the googly eyes when they're like, "We've made the camera twice as good as before." I'm like, "Oh, it's gonna be great." Like, what? Am I a professional photographer? No, not really. So like a lot of the stuff, it sounds really good, but it is negligible when it comes to upgrading, unless you're truly on, I don't know, a phone so old that you can't update the newest iOS, or, I'm talking about iPhones, of course, but it applies to lots of, flagship phones. But yeah, I think price is a huge issue, and it's gotten a lot of media play.
And that does play into the point 3 too. The fact that we don't have as many of these lower cost phones because a lot of them are made by companies that just aren't marketing them here for various reasons. Some of which is the trade war, some of it's not.
Right.
And so we just don't have as many options for those lower priced phones. So if you go into a store and you're like, "Wow, it's all Apple and Samsung," you might just turn around and walk right back out.
It also just reminds me of the conversation that we had about desktop computers and then laptops. And now it's mobile phones. Like, they're so good. Why would you need to keep upgrading once a year? You don't, as long as you take care of it.
That's kind of where I am. I just don't feel that my phone needs upgrading anymore. Whereas I used to get more than a year into using a phone, you start to feel slow. It starts to feel laggy. It just doesn't.
Yeah. I will say, when I was at Walgreens the other day using Apple Pay, the cashier was like, "You should really put something on your phone."
You think?
Because
he was cringing for you.
I don't rock a case. I was like, "Thank you for the advice. I will keep that in mind." Google is adding 2 new features to Live Transcribe. New features, which automatically transcribes speech. If you're not familiar with it, the first is adding sound events like a dog barking or a phone ringing or somebody laughing or more, with an indicator that appears at the bottom of the screen. The second new feature is the ability to save transcriptions for up to 3 days locally on the phone. Live Transcribe is available on Android phones. iOS users, sorry. And the new features will roll out next month.
Yeah, so it doesn't make the dog bark. It's basically transcribing. And in the transcription, if it hears a dog bark, it'll put, in brackets, dog barking. Well, I guess it doesn't put it in brackets. It just puts it down at the bottom of the phone, because the idea is that you're looking at this live.
Right.
And it'll be able to tell you like, hey, this is going on in the background. So I guess if you're using Live Transcribe to understand a conversation, and you hear the phone ring, I suppose you could respond. I don't know if it's used that way, but theoretically you could respond and say, "Hey, do you need to get that?" Or something. I don't know.
Well, and I think it's also for, anybody, myself included, let's say you're, recording a podcast and there's an ambulance and you're like, "Okay, hold on, everyone stop, wait for it to go by." If Google can sort of differentiate between the stuff and take out some of the, sort of starting and stopping nature of it.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, I think that's pretty helpful.
I'll see it when it happens. I don't have much faith in that just yet.
Well, I think it's a boon for people who need this for accessibility. In other words, they're unable to hear, they don't hear very well,
Right.
and this
Right.
sort of transcribes things for them and gives them a richer description of
context.
the ambiance. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
In June last year, all major U.S. mobile carriers promised to stop selling customer location data to third parties after a security issue leaked some real-time location data. Remember the whole kerfuffle about Securus and AT&T? Well, FCC Commissioner Jessica Rosenworcel has published letters from the carriers with updates to their programs. Here's what she found. T-Mobile terminated its program in March. AT&T ended all its programs March 29th. Verizon ended its location selling to Location Smart and Zoomago in November 2018, excluding one specific use case for a roadside assistance service, which ended in March. So AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon all had their programs ended by March, is what they say. Sprint still has theirs going, but the contract with location aggregators with them ends May 31st, and they say that they will not extend those contracts after May 31st. An ongoing FCC investigation is determining whether the sales violated Section 222 of the Communications Act. That's separate to the fact that they've shut them down. It's looking into whether it was illegal for them to do these deals in the first place. AT&T argues that it wasn't, of course, but we'll see where that goes if it goes anywhere.
Yeah, interesting that March was sort of the month for everybody except Sprint, who's like, we got contracts through the end of May. I don't see a lot of outrage about this, but I wonder why that was more important than saying, we want the public to be happy and we're going to terminate something early.
I'm not. I buy more into Sprint since they're saying, hey, we're still got it going right now. We're not quite ready.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling BS with the other folks saying, yeah, we've already cut it off. Yeah, sure. We're not.
Yeah. I mean,
anything.
These contracts could have been quarterly, which would have them ending in March. I could
okay,
see
yeah,
that
there's that.
Case. But yeah, I agree that before you feel 100% confident, let's do some audits. Let's check and make sure. But yeah, hopefully they're telling the truth. Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to our sister show, dailytechheadlines.com. All right. As we mentioned earlier this week, Adobe launched a new version of Lightroom CC. Ant wrote up a story for Tech Republic about it, and I know you were taken in part by the interactive learning part of the update.
Oh, definitely. This really hit me right in the feels, if you will, because photographers starting out, most of them are going to sort of migrate towards the world of Lightroom. And the first time you open up Lightroom, it can be rather intimidating. So the next thing you're going to do is start looking up resources and going on YouTube and how to use Lightroom. And there's never anything that's pretty concise or something that can give you a why you want to click this slider and this and that. And I give Adobe kudos because they're taking real world photographers, renowned photographers, and having them create this content to walk you through the ins and outs and the theory behind doing this adjustment versus that adjustment.
Well, so Ant, you mentioned, tutorials and videos and how they can be unhelpful. What is interactive about this and why is it so great?
When you're using it on a mobile device, whether it's your tablet or your phone, you get haptic feedback because the videos walk you through and say, hey, click here to make this adjustment now.
And know if you do the wrong thing and that sort of.
Even if you want to move the slider to say increase the exposure, if you increase it too much, it stops you and say, hey, no, that's too much. Go back.
Wait, does the video tell you that, or does it just give you a prompt?
It gives you a prompt and it gives you haptic feedback.
Okay. All right.
It's pretty slick.
Yeah. I was for a minute, I was wondering if the person on screen went like, nope, too far. It's not quite that advanced.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. But it still works. It gives you the haptic feedback, which is good.
Yeah, it's pretty slick.
I because we're talking about Lightroom, I use Photoshop. I am not a Photoshop expert by any means, but I do use it for certain aspects of some of the work that I do. I also use Premiere, so I'm a Creative Cloud subscriber to several different services. And it always sort of strikes me as like, why doesn't Adobe spend more time making Photoshop more accessible rather than have a completely different standalone product that in many cases, certainly for me, is probably just as robust as I would need.
Well, it is accessible for $10 a month.
Well, sure, but Photoshop is sort of like the that's the big guns.
Yeah.
Lightroom is really, really good for more of the everyday person who
Right.
is interested in photography. I mean, why spend so much time putting juice into Lightroom when there's also Photoshop?
Yeah, that's a good question. And hopefully you can get people like Terry White, they're big evangelists to do more than his little online live streams that he do to walk you through things, but something similar to what's been going on with Lightroom. That would be really good, but it's so much in Photoshop. It could be a pretty serious undertaking there,
Well,
to
and
break.
I wonder if this Lightroom feature is a way to kind of prove the case, right? To say let's do it with the easier to use one because it's more intense
Right.
to do Photoshop, like you're saying, Ant.
Yeah, that's quite possible, but then there's also the aspect of Lightroom CC being on multiple screens, whether it's your phone, whether it's your desktop, laptop, computer, or mobile device. Right now, you're limited when it comes to Photoshop, and people are going to want to learn wherever they can learn, whether it's sitting at the on a plane going across the country or
And
something.
that's true for audio editing software as well. I mean, I use Logic predominantly, even though I could probably use GarageBand for most things, But I'm like, I want the cooler, audio software, but it's also more limiting. I can't do my work on mobile devices. Can't do
Right.
it.
Right.
Yeah, there's a couple advantages of building it into the computer too, right? Or into the software is first of all, like you say, when you're on a plane, you probably can't stream YouTube and see a video. Whereas if this is locally cached, you might be able to get it. Although I don't know if it is. They may be streaming it from the internet as well.
Yeah, they're probably streaming it.
Yeah, so that may not be so much of an advantage. But the other thing is, a lot of times when you go out on the internet, you find people who assume you have knowledge that you don't. When you want to do a particular thing, and at least this knows kind of where you are on the scale.
Right. That's the thing. Lightroom, there's so much in there, not in comparison to Photoshop, but it could really be confusing. When I started out with Lightroom, it upset me that I didn't figure out the UI. Basically, you start from the top and just work your way down, and it would be a whole much better experience for you. No one ever told me that. There was no documentation on that, but just over time, I figured it out that, this is lined up perfectly. Why no one said this to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's sort of, that's kind of my question, even though interactive learning tutorials are a great idea. It's like, well, why didn't we do this a long time ago? Because in the help menu, as I'm sure many of you, can relate, I will search for something that I think is like the most basic keyword of whatever issue I'm having. And there's nothing.
Nothing.
So then it's like, all right, then you go to the internet, and you type in the keyword or, some sort of a string and try to, find something. There are usually lots of questions that apply to the question that I have, but not a lot of answers. And have you found, I mean, if Adobe didn't have interactive tutorials to help us all, have you found, certain resources that are better than others?
Quite frankly, the Adobe evangelists are my favorite go-to. When it comes to photography, definitely Mr. Terry White. When I'm looking at Premiere and Audition and even After Effects, Mr. Jason Levine. And they do regular live streams every week, and whether it's on Facebook or whether it's on YouTube, they're doing something every week to help, evangelize the product, but also give you some insight from a professional standpoint, but also letting beginners be very comfortable to say, hey, this is why we're doing this, because there's a lot of things like with Audition and editing audio that I still struggle with. And they've made it a lot easier for someone like me to just dive in and figure out what the heck an FFT filter is and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think this is a really smart thing for Adobe to do, to take their evangelists and make them teachers, because I get suspicious when I hear the term evangelist and think, oh, okay, you're going to try to convince me your product is better than something else, right?
Exactly.
And so I don't want to hear from an evangelist at the purchase decision point. But once I've already got it and I need help using it, I mean, having someone from inside the company is a positive at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're basically you're in a classroom. You're
Right.
learning something, you
And
know? So if
to
somebody's a good teacher, that's great.
and to their credit, Mr. Levine in particular, there's been a couple times he will say, you know what? Yes, I'm an evangelist, but this particular feature in Audition sucks. He, he will say it publicly, to let his developers know, hey, we can do better than this.
Well, he gets to say that.
Yeah, he can.
He's high enough on the ladder, I suspect.
Well,
Maybe
I
can
will
do it.
say, and audio editing programs, which, even though I use them on a daily basis, are mostly a mystery to me. I can't tell you how many YouTube videos I've watched where, the title of the video sounded just like what I needed. And 5 minutes later, I'm like, what? No idea what I just watched.
What
There's
just happened?
just unhelpful advice out there. And it's not because people are trying to, lead us astray. It's just because we all learn differently and we use these robust tools differently.
Well, and the contextual nature of what Adobe's doing here, I think, does help as well, because
Yeah.
it knows where you are in the program versus on YouTube. You have to do some searching until you find like, okay, is this the same case as what I'm trying to fix? So
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. Sometimes there are photo stories. Sometimes there aren't. Depends on the day. But you can submit your own stories and vote on others. And we definitely use them for both Daily Tech News Show and Daily Tech Headlines. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com is where to point your browser, and facebook.com/group/Daily Tech News Show if you hang out on Facebook and you'd like to join our group.
onward to the mailbag.
Onward. Jamie, who says he is a proud DTNS patron, says, I've been searching for months now for a reading solution for my 5-year-old son. We do reading for 30 minutes every day after school, and we're focusing on him fully reading his words and not guessing words if he doesn't know them. There are many good paid and free apps out there, but I had yet found exactly what I needed. In comes DTNS with a story about Area 120's Rivet on Thursday's show. That was yesterday. A free app that basically does exactly what I need a reading app to do for my son. Point out when he pronounces a word wrong, help with difficult sight words. I was so excited to hear about this app. I had to rewind and listen to the whole section again to really hear all those features. I feel I would not have learned about this app from another source. So thank you, DTNS, for helping me find this resource for my son.
Oh, that's great, Jamie. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes. Very heartwarming. Thanks, Jamie.
And then Jerry over in Cleveland, Ohio, responding to last week's conversation about Redfin trying to replace realtors and
Redfin Direct.
Do direct purchases of real estate. Jerry said the real problem with real estate fees is they're a percentage of the sale price. And any realtor will tell you it's hard or harder to sell a $100,000 home than a $1 million home. Assuming a 2% commission, a realtor will make $20,000 on a $1 million home, but $2,000 on the $100,000 home. Yet the amount of work they do is about the same.
Exactly.
Real estate fees need to be a la carte, flat rates based on the complexity of the transaction and not the price of the home.
I wonder if something like Redfin Direct would help this issue that Jerry's having. Or that Jerry's pointing out.
It made me wonder if you'll see more people looking for the $100,000 home go to Redfin, because realtors will be like, yeah, fine, I can't make as much off you anyway. Go use Redfin Direct. Whereas the $1 million homes will still get that high touch personal realtor assistance.
But again, if Redfin Direct does what it's supposed to do, you don't need the realtor in either scenario, right?
Well, yeah, although,
I'm not saying you don't.
Maybe people have more peace of mind, or they just don't want to take the risk of doing it direct. There's still all the closing stuff that you have to do yourself, and I'm not sure how that works with Redfin Direct still. I haven't got anybody explain that for me.
Yeah.
Like title insurance, all that sort of thing, which a realtor will often handle a lot of that for you. So
it seems like the people in that upper echelon of salaries will want that extra white glove touch.
Yeah, right. That makes sense to me.
It is what it is. It's the same reason why you can take like a CarMax dealership and put it in 2 different locations. And if it's in the more affluent location, it's probably not doing as well because those people don't want that type of service. They want a more of a white glove service from a different dealership.
And for the convenience of thinking about it less.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Hold your hand a little bit more. Yeah,
I'm fine walking over to the diner and getting my food. Whereas, the high tone people want a chef in their house making it,
or at least a Postmate to bring it to me.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's some good bechamel.
Bechamel sounds good. Actually, I used to put bechamel in my macaroni and cheese when I make it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Hey, folks, Len could not be here today, as I mentioned. Happy graduation to Len, but he was moved to do some art for us anyway in tribute to Grumpy Cat. If you're a Patreon at patreon.com/Len, then you will have this already in your Len Peralta Patreon, or you can get it at lenperaltastore.com. It's a picture of Grumpy Cat with the words, "Death sucks."
That is awesome.
It is so awesome. It makes me want to cry. It's so cute. This is one of your best, Len. And that's saying something. Oh, well, thank you, Len, even though you couldn't be here today. And also thanks to Aunt Pruitt for being with us this fine Friday from I was going to call it NorCal. NorCarol? You guys say that?
North Kakalaki, North Carolina.
All right, there you go. And let folks know where they can keep up with all your fascinating work.
Well, first off, there's always techrepublic.com, but go ahead and give me a follow over on Instagram because I love snapping the photos.
Yeah, man. And you're using Lightroom to make them look all good and stuff, right?
And what's your Instagram handle for anybody who's feeling lazy?
Pruitt. I'm sorry, Aunt Pruitt. That might help, wouldn't it? Hey, and also, can I give a shout out to the folks at NAMI.org? That's NAMI.org, because this month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month. Let's go over and check them out on their blog and learn a little bit more about mental health awareness and mental health illnesses. And let's get rid of the stigma that's around mental illnesses.
Hey,
absolutely.
I fought depression. I have anxiety disorders, and I shouldn't have to feel worse about that than somebody who's, got recurring colds or some kind of other malady. It's just a health issue, Go get it treated.
Protect the brain. Protect the brain, everybody.
Yeah.
NAMI.org, NAMI.org.
Thank you, Aunt, for that. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
And thanks to everybody who supports us on Patreon, patreon.com/DTNS. This show is majority funded by you. You are the people we listen to above anything else. Any other consideration, including our own, is our bosses at patreon.com/DTNS. So if you want to be one of our bosses, and get a bunch of membership perks too. You get special episodes. You get to vote on the products that Sarah's reviewing. There's all kinds of cool stuff, including extended versions of the show called Good Day Internet. You can find all that at patreon.com/DTNS.
Do you have something on your mind? We'd love to hear it. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live Monday through Friday. If you can join us, please do so. 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC is when it all goes down. You can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you Monday.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Oh, and I was going to say it. I forgot that Aunt and I are kind of coworkers,
Mm-hmm.
I
over at Tech Republic. You could find a good Ant story on Lightroom, and then you might go on to one of my top fives.
Love the top fives. Love the top fives. You make it look so easy, man.
That's Tom's thing.
The secret is do it for 15 years.
Oh gosh, they've asked me to do some more videos, and I'm like, sure, I'll do it. But man, I don't know how many takes I do.
Anytime anyone's like, "Oh, you're so comfortable doing this," I'm like, I wasn't at the beginning.
Oh gosh, no.
Just give it a few years. You'll get there if you want it.
Always whiskey at my desk.
Or just drink whiskey.
That is another another avenue you could take. We were talking about the whiskey before we started streaming, though. What was it again?
Highland Park.
He's having a bourbon right now.
This one here is a bourbon whiskey. This is a $10 or $20 bourbon. It's the best one that you can get. And it's called Henry McKenna. Because
best one you can get in what capacity?
You can get
in the world.
You can get a $250. I think so. Yeah.
$250?
Oh no. Dollar wise, it's $20 or $10.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh.
No, but you were
All
saying
right.
it's the same mash as
It's Buffalo Trace.
Buffalo Trace. That's right.
Ah, yes.
You know, so
Wait,
Buffalo
what? It
Trace
wasn't.
cost you about 30. That'll cost you about 10.
Mhm.
Isn't Buffalo Trace a band, or it was like a fictional band and a TV show? I
American
think.
There's
Gods.
Buffalo Springfield.
No. I think it was My So-Called Life. I think
Oh,
Buffalo
really?
Trace
Oh.
was like a show that they went to.
Huh. Named after the whiskey, yeah, no doubt.
Uh-huh.
All right, we got some titles submitted at showbot.chatrealm.net during the live version of the show. It's Amazon Pay, pal.
I like it.
Yeah,
Oh, Buffalo Tom. Buffalo
Buffalo
Different.
Tom. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nothing with that.
Friday Night Lightroom.
Hey! I like that because
Very good.
Good. Yeah, I like that
That's
one too.
clever. That's
I
clever.
used to do Friday night live streams.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Of me editing with in Photoshop. I like that.
All right, we'll stick a pin in that one. Let's see. Spotify has so many things. We got some nice Grumpy Cat tribute headlines.
Yeah.
Follow the light. Bad. Let's see. Let them see your true callers, because True Caller. Spotify's doing its thing. Yeah, man, I like Friday Night Lightroom. That's a good one.
Sweet.
I like Friday Night Lightroom. That's very clever.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Who submitted that one? That was Nth Mike. Good one, Nth Mike. Where N equals genius.
Right.
Oh man, it's time. What news broke while we were talking here?
Let's see. I was kind of looking, but I
Nothing
didn't
ever
see
breaks on
anything.
Friday usually.
I mean, it's unusual, yeah.
Well, the next web is talking about that hyperdimensional computing theory we mentioned yesterday. So
What do you call it? HDB? How do you?
HBV.
HBV.
Uh-huh.
And I will remember it because it's not
With a
got a B
B.
in it.
It didn't even sound real. I was like, he's totally making this.
It didn't sound same to me. Like, we even like kind of looked at it, read the story, talked about it on the show, and I was like, I don't know, it's magic.
It either didn't sound real or way over my head, And
a lot of the robot stuff feels that way to me more and more, where I'm like, okay, I mean, we're making
I
moves.
wasn't going to try to understand the math yesterday. I might take a crack at it someday, might not. But the next web story says hyperdimensional computing theory could lead to AI with memories and reflexes. That's what you need to know.
When you discuss this, I thought a little bit about video and motion graphics and keyframes, easy keyframes. The fact that you have to put that ease on it, it makes it look so much better and it looks a lot more natural. And I was thinking, what's the math that they would do for these robots, if you will, to make that movement be a little more like an easy ease versus a linear jerk, if you will.
And that's easy ease.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, I thought After Effects.
Yep. First thing that popped in my head is like, oh, they just need to do easy ease keyframes.
Yeah. Well, that's why I threw in the bit about the light sensor that they're using, because instead of going by taking whole scenes, right, frame by frame, it just looks at each pixel's intensity of light so that it can get a more continuous sense of motion. It's not trying to tell if you've got a brown mole on your face. It doesn't care about that. It just wants to know the contours of stuff so that it can adapt to it. That's part of the innovation there. And then the math part, the computer science part of it, is just like being able to take all this data and take what it learns and sequence it so that it accesses it in faster, rather than just having an algorithm that's been refined by experience. The experience is somehow encoded into the HBV platform. It's, again, like I don't quite have my head wrapped around that, but
way smarter than I am.
Thank God it's peer reviewed, right?
Well, and that's the problem. The robots will become smarter than us. We'll be like, I don't know how they work. It's math.
There's always a power cord.
HPV. Hey, Anna, I want to ask you, in the background, is that like a Wall Street Journal sketch of you? Or what do we got there?
Actually, one of my YouTube subscribers sent that to me.
Oh, yeah?
And it is a nice little sketch. She sent two of them. She sent this one.
Oh,
and then
that's
there's
good.
another one up on my wall.
Wearing a tie.
There's another one on my
that's
wall
nice.
with my glasses on, my sunglasses. And this has been one of the coolest gifts that I've ever gotten.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. We got a guy did a 3D printing one time of our album art. It's that kind of stuff just always amazes me that people can do that.
And speaking of 3D printing, another friend of mine, follower, subscriber, he made this for me with his printer.
Create and dominate.
That's me, baby.
Hell yeah. That's a nice little, it's like a plaque, I guess.
Yep, that's all it is. And it just sits here next to my Pentium 2 processor.
I noticed as a Clemson faithful, you've also, you're it's strong, orange and black.
Well, I grew up down there in South Carolina, right
Oh,
down the road from the university. My grandmother actually lived in that town. So it's one of those things where
sure,
I'm going to bleed orange.
born and bred.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And it's been a good year for us.
Indeed. Sorry, I'm distracted by this. There's this Huawei article here about the plans they're making to keep supplies coming, even if they're not allowed to buy U.S. materials, right? Because we talked about that entity list thing yesterday. TSMC in Taiwan says it will maintain supplies. So
how?
It's going to assess the impact of the decision. Yeah, and it leaves it kind of vague, right?
That doesn't say anything.
Innolux supplies.
We will think about things.
Well, and TSMC's in Taiwan, so maybe what they're saying is like, well, we're allowed to source parts, and then we can sell a part. Maybe that gets them around it because they're a parts supplier that is not in the United States. Innolux is going to supply screens. Qualcomm and Qorvo have suspended shipments as of Friday, though.
That's big. That's big dollars.
Yeah, I feel like Huawei will make a bigger fight of this than ZTE, which just kind of shut down, was like, we can't do anything.
Right.
Huawei's been sort of, because it happened to ZTE, I think they've been trying to plan for this. It's going to be tricky for them to figure out a way around it, though.
Yeah, I see those phones and I'm thinking, man, those are some pretty nice devices that I'll never have. I hate that.
Yeah, especially that the P30 looks like a great phone, and the phones aren't the issue. Nobody's saying the phones are the security threat. It's the switches and the networking equipment. So, I mean, you may decide that, well, the phones, I wouldn't trust the phone too, which would be, perfectly within right. But
it comes from Huawei. It can't be good.
Nobody has shown evidence that there is any backdoor in any of this stuff yet. The only piece of equipment that's had a backdoor in it for sure is a Cisco piece of equipment. So I like to try to reset the perspective on that. I'm not saying there isn't, but nobody's shown it yet.
Right. Where's the proof?
Mm-hmm. And then there's a report from CNBC
in
saying
the
Google has
pudding.
been keeping. Is it in the pudding?
That's what they say.
I keep looking and I just see pudding.
I know, same. Where I'm like, there just is never any proof in here. It's delicious.
Okay, so where does that one come from? I'm pretty
I
sure.
don't know. That's why I brought it up.
I think it has to do with English pudding, which is not like Jello pudding. It's a baked good.
Well,
Right.
yeah, it's
like
And the
figgy
proof,
pudding.
and I think the proof they're talking about is the proof of the baker's skill is in the pudding that they bake.
Oh, so it's basically saying like, if you can back up your claims, we'll know.
Like she says she's a good baker, but the proof.
Yeah,
is in
have
the
a bite, and then you tell me.
Yeah.
I was really hoping it had to do with the rum in the pudding, but apparently that's not a thing.
Well, that's part of the proof.
100 proof is in the pudding. If you're lucky.
There's that.
Roger, are you looking that up? Because that was just a like half pulled from memory explanation. I'm not sure if that's
Whoops, sorry.
Oh, I don't. If you're busy, sometimes you're already looking.
Proof in the pudding. I can look it up.
In a zone.
Oh, there was something else too where I was like, "Oh, it's perfect for GDI." Something where I was like, I said it out loud to somebody, and then as soon as I said it, I was like, "What does that even mean?" No one knows.
I was close. The original saying was the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Okay. Well,
So it wasn't quite what I said, but
it's implied, I think. Yeah.
It's a saying that means like you can say your pudding's good, but until you eat it, you don't know.
Right.
Proof is in it. Yeah. It's not your words, it's your actions.
You guys need to grow up in the South with an old Southern Black grandma like mine and listen to the things that comes out of her mouth.
Would it be okay if we just visit her and
can you pass along any
enjoy her wonderful recipes? Probably makes good pudding.
Oh my goodness. I just think that my childhood and some of the crazy stuff she used to say. And when you know that show King of the Hill, that cartoon?
Yeah.
In Boomhauer? My family talks like that.
Like Boomhauer.
I'm dead serious. My wife, I remember the first time I took her to South Carolina to visit my family, and she couldn't understand a word anyone said. She just couldn't, because
it was just like hard drawl kind of thing.
And it's just super duper fast, and it makes perfect sense to me. But when I come back to Charlotte, I can tell that, man, I'm not in the country anymore.
Yeah, it's funny how because there's an accent to where I come from too, and it only comes out of me when I'm talking to somebody from there.
Right.
And it's funny how it just kind of fades once you're out of touch.
Well, and it funny too, because it all has to do with fatigue, right? It's like if you're tired or you're inebriated, that happens with people sometimes. It's like, oh, there it is, because you're kind of lazy, So it's like it's your core, speech pattern that no matter how hard you get rid of it, or I don't know. That it just kind of comes back.
Yeah, or just being in the environment, like Jenny Josephson is in New York for a while, and the longer she's there, every time I talk to her, it's thicker and thicker with this New York. It's not even just the accent though; it's the attitude too. Like the way she talks is just it changes everything when you go back to your roots.
Is it the Brooklyn side or Bronx side?
I don't know.
Different.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Brooklyn and Bronx people would have lots to say about,
and
there are quite a big difference. I feel like I know the difference, but it's only because I know where the person's from already. So I'm like, oh yeah, Brooklyn, totally, you can tell.
No,
I don't know if I would be able to otherwise.
One of my fantasy trips is to go to New York and spend enough time there to understand the differences between the districts. The neighborhoods, to actually say, I know what the Upper West Side is, and I know what the blah blah blah. And
I just like Long
Island. I can pick that out.
Long Island.
Yeah, Ron Richards.
Yeah.
And others. He's not the only person who lives there, but I can pick that one out. But the rest of the boroughs,
Will we get to the bottom of which borough Jenny Josephson came from? Well, video folks, there's no hope for you. But audio folks, stick around. There's more to come. Spoiler, I don't